We are recording. All right, welcome back to the Film Field NFL, everybody. I am Jack. This is Shane. Shane, how are you doing today?
Hey man, I'm doing great. Living it up on Memorial Day. Shout out to all our active military members. We appreciate you. We know freedom ain't free. Um, Shout out you guys.
Shout out Memorial. Big shout out Memorial. But yeah, today we're going to be talking over just the overall, I would say, first round prospects and where they might end up in terms of the end of the season. Whether it's just progress generally we want to see, whether it's if is this guy going to be an Elroy candidate, all that kind of stuff. Because the conversation outside of will this guy be good is much more interesting than just will he be good. Like we know a Carnell Tate is going to be good down the line of Mendoza, but I want to talk about specifically what their efficiency might look like this year and what that might look like even heading into year two. So I think that conversation is an interesting one to have. And you and I wanted to have a conversation about Mendoza and what we
That was
think
certainly
about.
one we don't see eye to eye on. So I definitely
We
think that's a
do
good one
not
to
see
start
eye to
with.
eye on what's going to happen with Mendoza. So I kind of want to let you start this one off because I think you can kind of frame the conversation a little bit better than I can.
Yeah, I'd love to start this off, especially since on this podcast, I am a hashtag Mendoza truther. I have been adamant from day one that this was my QB1 in this draft and someone that I see with a long NFL career in his future. He ain't starting week one. And that's where Jack and I see differently. I do not think that it would be best for his development to start him in week one, simply because Spytech and crew have developed this plan for him, getting Kirk Cousins on the contract that they did to have him as not just a mentor off the field, but on the field as well. But that doesn't mean that they won't have an elite Bible study. I can promise you, regardless of whoever's starting there, that Bible study is going to be popping.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of opinions in that locker room, I'll tell you that. A lot of opinions. Uh, but what I will say about this is I push back against this pretty aggressively. The reason why is because I don't come from a frame of reference where I'm against the idea of quarterbacks sitting their first year and developing. I think it's beneficial, but I think the conversation we have around this is not clear cut. Right, we see both situations of quarterbacks starting off and learning via getting more reps and feeling more polished as the season goes on, and we see examples where guys sit. But the examples that we do see of guys sitting, where we see the most growth out of that, is quarterbacks that typically aren't yet there on the processing level, that aren't yet there on the level of, I would say, comfortability in the pocket, things like that. And usually, typically, high end athletes who need to kind of simmer down the out of play structure stuff and learn the structure of the offense. So when I look at quarterbacks that need to sit, it's that realm of thinking. It's a Jordan Love, right? A guy where it's, hey, big arm, he's got all this stuff, but he needs to just pull it back a little bit, learn the organizational structure of the offense, like all that kind of stuff, get to your check down, all this kind of stuff. That's what I think of when I think of a guy sitting, right? And there will be other examples, outliers to that, where it's a guy where, hey, maybe pressure in general is something he struggles with, right? Which is kind of a struggle for Mendoza a little bit. I think he can get a little bit skittery. But like overall, I would say that is something that you give to quarterbacks who need the time behind the scenes learning the playbook. A guy like Mendoza is the polar opposite of the way I look at that process, even a little bit. I look at Mendoza as completely as a guy who, even generally, I would say scouts looked at as a guy who is pretty pro ready now. Like a very efficient, runs the RPO system, ran a much more expanded system in Cal, right? Like this is a guy that understands processing at a pretty high level and understands getting to his checkdowns, where like even the low end floor of him has been the conversation of game manager, right? That's the conversations we had. So a guy like that to me is not like a Jalen Milrow or like one of these other things where it's like, hey, if you're gonna take a chance on this guy, sit him and let him develop. That's not even close to what I look at Mendoza as at all. That's a guy that I look at and go, the more aggressive throws he's going to make on the field is the goals he needs to make. Because sometimes I think he can not be as aggressive and sometimes he can fade away from pressure. Those are things he's going to learn as he's on the field. Like that's not really something I look at as he's getting the most benefit from sitting behind. And especially, it's not a situation where they have like an Aaron Rodgers where it's like, oh, we've got the solidified guy. He has time to develop. It's not like a Ty Simpson situation where it's like, hey, he's got time to sit back there. Like we're talking about like an aging post ACL tear Kirk Cousins that they brought in when we all knew, even by the point of them bringing him in, that they would take Mendoza. So it's like this thing where it's like, I see no reason at all for a quarterback in his position to be sitting.
I got about 150 million reasons why Kirk Cousins is going to be starting week one for this team. Outside of everything you just said about why quarterbacks typically sit year one, I think that NFL teams need to get back to that anyway. Guys need to come in there and earn the job. And I think that we've gotten away from that a little too much to where, let me finish, because what happens is they give up on these guys quicker. Look at Anthony Richardson, prime example, comes into a situation where in his career leading up to that week one start that he got as a Colts quarterback, had not played more than 20 games of football.
But
It's
Anthony,
crazy to me. And then now he's on the shelf, and you're probably never going to see him again in any real respective light other than preseason. Remember when we thought that guy was going to be something?
But
A
Anthony
la Trey
Richardson
Lance.
fits the mold of the quarterbacks I'm talking about. I feel like if you look back at the conversation around Richardson, the thing you're looking at is this is a guy who doesn't have enough reps out there to know the processing skills and have all this stuff. All the problems that Richardson has applies to the same things I'm talking about when it comes to the Jalen Milrows and Jordan Loves of these project athlete quarterbacks that do need to sit. I don't think what Richardson as a quarterback archetype wise and what his progression and goals are fit any way to what Mendoza is going to be, or like even like what a Jared Goff was years ago. Like not even close, because I think that
Mendoza and Goff aren't similar.
no, I'm saying Mendoza and Goff are similar. Goff is not a
Okay.
guy I'm like, this
Okay.
guy needs to sit. Like, Goff's like a guy I'm like, you can throw him out there now. And I think you see examples of where we look at this and it's a waste of time. Drake May in 2024. That was a waste of time with Jacoby Brissett. Complete waste of time. Because May comes
That's a
out
pure
there.
hypothetical though, because ultimately he did sit, and when he came in, he was ready. So like that's a pure hypothetical. Who's to say that like
But he came in like 8 weeks into the season, and anyone
100% exactly what
but
Mendoza's
also,
going to do?
what did May do in the NFL that you had a struggle or you had a concern about in the college level that you feel like grew? I can't name one in comparison to what he
Experience.
I just think that's so nothing though, because he looked fine in college and then looked fine in NFL. Like like for example, if it's experience for all of them, then why doesn't every single number one overall pick sit? Right? Why aren't we sitting every single number one overall pick? Because they all need experience. Should Arch sit next year? Should Mendoza sit this year? Ward
Well, what
last year
team are they
sit?
going to? What does their ceiling look like? What's their plan for their team? You get 5 years with this guy now, right? Because you have the 5th year option. They always pick up the 5th year options on quarterbacks that you already know what you're paying this guy. So why not have him sit and develop under somebody? I'm not going to sit here and call Kirk Cousins some like league winner, right? But it's at least a guy that started at the NFL level for over a decade. Why on
But
earth would I bring him in if it's not to start at
But
least
what
8 games?
are you getting out of this? Like, I feel like the problem is that we take the conversation of experience and we use that to justify this. But we've seen experiences from tons of quarterbacks where they don't need to like sit for like 5 weeks and figure it out. Like, I think we can look at what they look like on the college level and understand what their translation will look like. Obviously, there's going to be struggles, but the conversation is, will those struggles grow and develop through getting reps or through sitting back? And I think that conversation depends on the kind of quarterback we're talking about. And I don't think Mendoza fits at all the kind of quarterback that I'm like, he should sit and learn the playbook. That's not at all the kind. Same thing with Drake May. Same thing with like Caleb Williams. Same thing with even a Jaden Daniels. Like those are not guys I'm like, that guy needs to sit and learn the playbook. A for example, I don't think we had any like elite project quarterbacks in here except Taylor Green this year. But even like last
Drew
year,
Aller.
Jalen, uh, I guess Allen. But even what are they doing with him? They're sitting him, which makes complete sense because he's a guy that has no tools. But this is a different situation than Mendoza. Do you think what Mendoza needs to learn as a developing quarterback is the same as Aller? I don't think so at all. I think
No,
they're fit.
no.
But that's what I'm saying is they're different scenarios.
But they
Where
both need to learn. That doesn't mean that they don't
but
need to learn.
it's not about them not needing to learn. It's about what are they learning, right? Mendoza is a good processor, a good like viewer of the field, a guy who gets to his check down, a guy who understands playbooks well. That's not a guy I'm like sitting to figure it out. If I want him to learn, then he needs to get reps out there learning. I want him to get more aggressive by being out there and seeing coverages and seeing it all live. That's not a guy where I'm like, he's not pro ready. No, he is pro ready. He is ready to sit, like start week one. Same thing with Cam Ward. I wouldn't be like, man, this guy needs to polish up behind, Blaine Gabbert.
Oh, I would absolutely say Cam Moore would have benefited from sitting a couple
So
weeks.
do you think Cam Ward did not make progression through his first year by getting reps and actually physically playing? Because I would argue he did.
I mean, you can make the argument, but I could also make the argument that he would have benefited from that happening at practice and learning that way
They do have
instead of
practice
having
stuff.
to have it happen in real game moments that
I don't I
could have
don't agree. I
ultimately
don't
killed his
agree with I
confidence
don't agree
overall.
with this at
Like,
all.
why am I
I don't
sending out Fernando Mendoza in games where I know that they're not going to beat? They're not the best team right now. We're not sitting here calling the Raiders Super Bowl contenders with Kirk Cousins, with Fernando
so
Mendoza.
should the
So
Bengals have
either
sat
way,
Joe but should the Bengals have sat Joe Burrow his first year?
I feel like that's a different scenario,
No,
though,
it's
of the
not because
team
they were
built around him.
terrible that year. They were awful that year. They were miserable. They were terrible
But
that
they
year.
also like that's like, but I'm saying it's different from the side of like, if you want to even get into the politics of it, right? Like, this is a guy, no pun intended, with Jackson Dart, by the way. This is a guy that they were trying to sell tickets with. Like, they were trying to make sure that like he was the face of the franchise right out the gate. He was coming off of this unreal season that the Bengals needed something to sell seats. This is Vegas we're talking about. It's going to be dominated by visiting teams regardless. Like, this isn't a fan base that they're trying to like get good
But
faith with.
but
John
this
Spytek is trying to build something that takes time.
but
And
this
that's why he brought in Kirk Cousins.
I don't have a problem with that roster building perspective. But the problem is that doesn't change the conversation about what are these guys getting out of their perspective of learning. If a guy is sitting, what is he getting better at that he wasn't good at in college? And if a guy is getting reps, what is it helping him get better at that he wasn't good at before? Reps, I think, help guys with figuring out windows and figuring out where things align, being like, okay, I get a bit too aggressive and out of the pocket in these situations. I can dial that back down a bit, right? Guys who can't really read the field and struggle with that, those guys get much better with play action and quick game and under center stuff by learning behind the scenes. But you can also learn those things on the field, right? Like, Dart was a guy that I didn't think really needed to sit. He was a pretty pro-ready guy. Like, I was like, sure, start Russ if you. I mean, he started by week 4 and he looked fine. The only thing he needed to really learn was under center stuff, and that's stuff that you're going to learn through the reps anyways. And also, I just don't see a lot of benefit from sitting a guy who already is pro ready, who his biggest problems aren't reading the field. Like, Mendoza's biggest problems, he will fix as time goes on by getting reps. He will become more aggressive out there. He'll learn what pressures look like. This guy's sitting behind and just reading the playbook. There's not a lot of benefit. Like, I get it. They're not going to be a good team this year, which is why you should play during a season where no one's going to have their eyes on you and you can just get polished, get your reps in, figure out what works, figure out what doesn't. Because then by the end of the season, we're going to be like, hey, he really started to get better at these things, or hey, he started to really get more polished with these things. Like, I understand ultimately at its core, we won't really know the benefits of sitting versus playing. But in terms of the archetypes of quarterbacks we look at, we can at least have some kind of perspective of what fits them the best. And I absolutely do not think sitting for a guy like Mendoza fits him at all. For a guy like Anthony Richardson, completely agree he should have sat. For a Drew Aller, completely makes sense. For a Mendoza, for like an Arch Manning next year, absolutely not. Like, I think you're wasting your time. I think Drake May shown that that was a waste of time. I think that, God, who's another example we've had recently who started like halfway through the year?
But you're
Um,
talking about starting halfway through the year, which is the point I'm trying to make. That's when I
I
think
don't
he
even think
takes
that should happen.
over.
But that's what I'm saying is I think starting halfway through the season, you realize it was a waste of time for us to be doing this in the first place. They should have just started.
I
Drake May
don't
could have,
think that's the case at all, because at
I
that
think
point you're
so.
doing
May
practice on a weekly basis against scout teams on the defense. Like, you're talking about learning on the fly. You're learning that in the practice scenarios when you're practicing against the defense's structure.
But that is not even close to the same as the real game situations. They just aren't. Like, we see it time and time again. So many times in Giants practices have I heard, wow, this guy is showing out. And then he's the worst player on the team the entire year. Every year I hear this. Oh my God, look at Trey Hawkins. He's their corner one, maybe. Oh my God. And then he's
Are you talking
terrible.
about training camp, or are you talking about practice on a weekly basis? Because
Practice
I'm
and
talking
training
about
camp.
practice.
Practice and training camp. Practice and training camp. And there's a lot of Giants training camp players who are awesome, and then they are not really good in like game situations. And game situations are just different. They're way more different. You don't know the like exotic blitzes you're gonna look at. You don't know anything about these defensive schemes beyond what you're predicting they'll do. Like, it's just a lot more different to be in the fray of it all. And like, I get it. I do agree that for certain quarterbacks, the conversation is to sit them, right? I think that's absolutely true. Lenora Sellers, that might be a conversation about if he can sit or what that would look like. I think he's getting a bit better at the processing level, but I understand it. Like, maybe that's a guy you look at and you're like, hey, let's sit him, right? For a Ty Simpson, right? I get it. they have a Stafford in place, so that makes sense,
The
right? Like
contract extension, by the way, so that pick looks worse and worse by the day.
I don't agree with that. I think we all knew Stafford would have a 1 year extension. That made complete sense to me. I thought
So
that
he's
was
got 2 years now of sitting.
I think that's fine. Jordan Love did too. I think that's fine. You know what I mean? I don't think he's the quarterback that Jordan Love is, but like I get the process because you have 2 years of a very polished veteran who is legitimate and winning you stuff now versus like let's be real about who Kirk Cousins is, man. Let's be real. Like let's be real. Post ACL statue in the pocket. Like this is not like just a Jacoby Brissett. This is just a Jacoby Brissett, basically.
And just as Jacoby Brissett got beat by week 8, which is exactly when Mendoza is going to take over.
But that we shouldn't.
They'll
But
be
that's what I'm
ready to
saying is we
attack.
shouldn't even be doing this. Like it's a waste. Like what will happen is if this does happen, it'll be week 8. Mendoza goes out there and looks fine, and it's like there's nothing about who Mendoza is in week 8 of the NFL that I'm looking at compared to college tape that I'm like, this is some grand difference that sitting and learning the playbook helped. That's the problem to me is I see none of that, right? Like I would get that for a Drew Aller. If a Drew Aller sat for year 1 and then year 2 he looks polished, I'd be like, oh, that makes sense. His mechanics were a mess. His processing of the field was bad. His internal clock goes up 100 when things go bad. Makes sense. This guy sits and develops. A Mendoza, a guy who was touted as being unbelievably pro ready. Look at the way this guy studies his playbook. Look at the way he reads the field. That is not a guy I'm sitting. I will always push back against these kind of guys sitting because it makes no sense to me. I thought it was a waste of time with Drake May. There's another example I can't think of off the top of my head. I thought it was to an extent a waste of time with Dart. I mean, like I think every Giants fan looking back was like, why do we even start Russ? Like that was a waste of time. Like that, it really was. It really was a waste of time. Like it just wastes time for valuable developmental reps for your quarterback to get. I get that there's verity in that, but I can't, man. It's a waste of time.
Agree to disagree.
Yeah, waste of time to me. Like, but I do agree with the general idea that certain guys should sit though. Like, I just think it depends on the kind of quarterback we're talking about. And I
There's
think
not this specific guy, is what you're saying.
not these kind of guys, no. Not a
Okay.
Jared Goff type, not a Mendoza type. Certainly not Arch Manning next year. He looks like a very legitimate processor. Like these guys who won't gain much from behind the scenes are not guys I want to sit. Lenore Sellers, maybe that's a conversation. That's like a guy where I'm like, that actually sounds like maybe a guy potentially could sit. But I actually think he's got a bit more reading the field chops than he gets credit for. So that's a different conversation where I'm like, I do see the outlook of that. But I just think it varies. Basically, the consensus I have here is bro, it depends. It depends. Bro, it depends. So that's where I lean on it. God, I hope they don't sit him. I mean, like, I'm not watching a single Raiders game if that's the case. I'm not watching that.
He ain't starting week 1.
Are you watching that garbage if he starts?
I probably wouldn't be watching it regardless.
I'm watching Mendoza with Bowers.
Isn't it like the Raiders Dolphins week 1 or something insane like that? Isn't that like the
They play the Dolphins. I'm watching it if it's Mendoza, but I'm not watching it if it's Kirk Cousins. Like, what are we doing? Am I gonna watch him get sacked 6 times by Josh Uche? Like, what are we doing? I'm gonna watch this guy get sacked 6 times by Josh Uche, beating DJ Glaze.
Dolphins might have something. Maybe they're not going to get Arch.
Josh Uche bends around the corner, beats DJ Glaze, and sacks Kirk Cousins. I don't know about that if the Dolphins have anything. They're going to go Jeremiah Smith next year. That's my prediction. Yeah. Next, we have Carnell Tate. And I think the Carnell Tate conversation is interesting because I've been a big advocate for Carnell Tate. And not in the sense that I think Carnell Tate's some unbelievable, can't miss elite prospect. He grades about similar to Tetero McMillan for me last year. I think he's a little bit better than McMillan, but he's in that like top of tier 2 range for me, which is very good, like top 5, top 10. So I had no problem with the Titans taking him as high as they did. And in his relation to the role on offense, I think it comes in immediately being wide receiver 1. For some reason, people on TikTok love Wan'Dale Robinson, who is a good player, but they think he's like a superstar wide receiver. Like they talk about him like he's T. Higgins. Like they talk about him like he's like a wow, they have 2 1s. And it's like, no, they don't. They do not at all. And I like him. I think he's a good, legitimate player. But he's an underneath target. He's a out route, specialist, and he can go vertical. Like I think he can sneak up on you because of his speed. But he has a very specific role as like I would say like a Robin to your Batman, right? And like Tate is that Batman. Like Tate is that all around legitimate 3-level separator. So he's going to be the number one option. And I think what's nice about this is that he's the kind of guy that's going to be able to win very easy against, deep vertical safeties and corners. Like if they're playing off coverage against them, that's going to be very easy for Tate because of the build up speed that he gets. I think his strides are really huge. So I think when it comes to like, deep post routes and stuff like that, he's the kind of guy that can do like a rocker step and really get off of you very easily. There's still conversation to be had about how well he'll be able to handle press coverage. I think he's a good press coverage beater, but like there's room for him to maybe struggle, not be bad, but just struggle, just because like press coverage is hard to beat. But also, I think teams are doing a better job nowadays in the past like 2 years of getting guys
Oh yeah.
away from press coverage. Like I think it's a much easier. But I also wonder if a lot of the times when that happens, those kind of sneaky gadget plays are going to be to Wandale as opposed to Tate, which is fine. But like I could see a world where Tate's a bit more of the like high yardage but low volume of targets. You know what I mean? Now, what does that mean for like a fantasy perspective? I have no idea. But just in the way they like frame their offense, I could see that being the case. But Tate will immediately be the one there, obviously. But I think the interesting thing there will be the way that they utilize the offense to both Ward and Tate's strengths, because I actually think this might be a team that's hitting a lot of deep inbreakers and deep digs over the middle of the field, because that's an area of Tate's game that they didn't use that much at Ohio State, but it's an area where he really can break off of those routes very sharply and win across the middle of the field. And that's where Ward is very confident, like just hitting those deep inbreakers, deep digs, like a few yards off these 30-yard chunk gains. That's where Ward's going to be looking at Tate the most, and I think that's where you might see for those first couple of weeks super high volume, like him going up against like some of these like Giants corners and some of these really bad corners early on. He's gonna build up a huge amount of yards in these first couple games. Like I can see it looking very much like a Mecca Ibuka like first section of the year kind of thing.
And I think that would be great for his confidence, especially. If he gets out the gate hot, I think that'll really say a lot about what his season outlook will be. If he gets out the gate a little bit colder, it could be more of an outlook of how Dabble and the team plans on running the offense in general. Maybe they don't want to give him the reins right away, not necessarily make him earn it per se, but more so just like, look, like I think that we got to build through Wandale right now. I think he's used to taking the chunk. Maybe that's the case coming out too. And then, like you said, it's not necessarily high receptions, but the yardage, the yak is where he'll shine. So it could be games of 4 catches for 82 yards, right? But it's still 82 yards and contributing to the team. But we just have to see what the Brioche of Bald Bros comes up with over there in Tennessee. Getting him open down the field. I think, his biggest strength is his hands. He can catch away from his body very, very well. He's not going to separate the greatest, a la MHJ, and we've seen how that's translated to the NFL for him. I don't foresee the same thing for Tate, but it's just something that I'm keeping my eye on. It could be more of a Pickens situation where maybe the guy doesn't separate, but it doesn't really matter if he separates because he catches everything.
That's interesting that you think he's not that great of a separator. I think he's a pretty great separator. I think he just is not like he doesn't have like elite burst, but I think he's like, if you're talking about on like a technical level, unbelievably polished.
No,
In
I'm
terms
not going to sit here and act like he was like the worst in my class or anything like that. It's just not something I would necessarily look at his game and put it as a pro or a con. You know what I mean? It's just like something to keep an eye on. It wouldn't surprise me if like he gets out the gate week 1, week 2, and we're noticing a lot of routes where maybe they kind of read him from the jump, like it wouldn't really surprise me. And that's not an end all be all either. I'm not sitting here saying that like, yep, called that about him. It's really just one of those things where I'm like, it's worth keeping an eye on. And it's not necessarily something I'm worried about regardless because he has great hands.
It's possible. I definitely disagree. I think that Tate as a
Shocker.
route, yeah. Well, I mean, like, I think one of Tate's best strengths was his route running in college, like by far, Like I thought he was on par of a route runner as Marv was. To be
Sure.
fair, I thought Marv was more of a technician than a true separator, but I think Tate has separation because of his long strides. He has those
Sure.
strides that Jefferson has. So he has not only like the athletic profile to build up enough space away from defenders, he also has incredibly, incredibly smooth route running. At most, maybe sometimes he kind of curves some routes once in a while, and that's like fine. Like that's fine. Like that's like one of the like such a not like neighbors did that sometimes, and that doesn't really matter. Like when it comes to that and how sharp the stem of your route is, it matters. But like you selling the route is more important. If you're gonna run a dig and you're gonna like look like you're facing outward to build up space on the sideline, that's more important than at what level you curve the inner part of the breaking point of your route. Like it's
Sure.
important, but you can get away with it. So like so many of these receivers get away with it, like all of them. I see CeeDee Lamb do it like every game, like because it doesn't
Sure.
matter. Like it's fine. But I think Tate's a very polished route runner, and on top of that, I don't think that Wandale is going to be the guy they build their offense out of, because I think Dable's the kind of guy that understands that a first round receiver is a guy you get like brought in immediately. Like you bring him in immediately. He did it with Neighbors. I think you're going to do it with Tate here. If they don't, it would feel like a solid decision to me. Dayball is the kind of guy to me that's like we're gonna throw deep shots to Tate all day. He's not going to use them like Neighbors because they're not the same. Um, but it's going to be a lot more outside vertical stuff. And when that's the case, like, who do you want Ward throwing the ball to? That's going to be Tate. He's your best weapon on the field. Like he's without a doubt the best weapon on the field.
Right.
So I think they're going to get him involved immediately out of the gate.
I agree with that. And the only other point that I want to make before we move on is just it'll be interesting keeping up with him from a durability standpoint. This isn't a guy that has had those targets in a large setting. Like at any point in his college career, he's not in a bad way. He's just been buried behind elite receivers. They're wide receiver you there at Ohio State. So it'll be interesting to see, can he be healthy for 17 games? And if so, what does that look like, from a stat line perspective?
Yeah, I appreciate that you framed it that way, because when people talk about his injuries last year, it's like BS. Like they just wanted to keep Smith and him healthy. Like his
Right.
injuries, like that, because I was watching every game. They basically say on the sideline, they're like, he's fine. Like they just don't want
Yeah, his
to.
hamstring is probably 85%. Why risk it when you're up by 25?
Yeah, like they were playing like nobodies, right? And so,
Yeah.
but I do understand framing it in the sense of like more targets and more hits and just generally. I think
Yeah.
he will be fine because he has such a great frame. Like his frame's awesome. But it is interesting to think about just if injuries could pile up. He's been a very healthy guy most of his years, so I don't think it'll be a problem. But it'll be interesting to see just the more of a focus on him and seeing how that works out. I
Right.
think he'll be fine, but I agree. It's like it's interesting to play on that. Next, we've got Jordan Tyson, which is an interesting one to me.
Speaking of
Because
durability.
speaking of durability, look, I've talked about Tyson a lot where I've said, like, I get it. The durability concerns, that's one thing for me. I think Tyson has more concerns than people give the conversation credit for. I think that he struggles to win physically at the catch point, because then people will be like, well, did you see these highlights? And I'm like, yeah, they're the highlights. Like, what do you this highlight has maybe 20 catches overall. Do you think he only caught 20 balls all year? Like, it's like you got to look at every rep. You know what I mean? Like he didn't go out for 20 snaps, man. He didn't go out for only 20 snaps. The reality is
He might have only gone out for 20 snaps.
actually maybe he did. The reality is he gets pushed around on his routes a lot. There's a lot of physical concerns, and now the question could be, was that a lot of the injuries this year that play a part? Because I thought he was much better in 2024 than he was 2025. I thought he was much better in 2024.
That's like a sign of Arizona State as a whole as well.
Yes, 100%. Also, Sam Levitt. That's also a statement on him. Dude, I became so negative on Sam Levitt watching Jordan Tyson film.
He
I was
also
like,
played injured. He's another
but he's
determined.
he's also like, ooh, we're gonna have some conversation about him in the summer, man.
Sure
Ooh,
sounds
God.
like it.
Oh God, dude.
Stay tuned,
Please.
guys.
Please read the field, man. Please, for the love of God, read the field, man. Read the backside dig, please. But like, yeah, I think with Tyson, people overlook the physicality concerns, which is he struggles through contact a lot of times. There's times where he's pushed off his routes. And listen, these are things that like are fixable. Like they're not going to ruin his career in the NFL. Far, far from it. He will be a very good receiver in the league, like superstar level. But when people talk about him in the frame of reference of like, wow, he's so elite. Wow, oh my God, he's like almost borderline blue chip, I push back. You want to talk about him in like the superstar range, like the range you may have talked about Ibuka last year? Oh, I'm down. Like I think that's where he's about. You know what I mean? I think it's about where he's at. It's when we get into the like blue chip, oh my God, he's so good. He's my number one play. Like some people were like that. And I'm like, that's excessive. And people who talk about it as if the injuries are the only concern. Why I think the Saints will be a great spot for him is because he's not going to have to be the X receiver. because he's not an X receiver. He's a flanker, right? He's a absolute dynamic flanker. And he's going to get to play that because they're going to let Olave go out wide. They're going to let Bryce Lance go out wide. They're going to let Tyson not have to be the one, which is a great thing for him because I think he'd get pushed around. Not in the sense that he's not like a really good receiver. Like I think we have a lot of really good receivers in the league right now. He's absolutely one of those guys that can become like a really true superstar, but like a superstar in the vein of like the level of quality a T Higgins is, where it's like very good. Are you the one on the team? No. And then like the low floor of that is like a Jordan Addison, right? So it's like still very
I was
good.
just gonna say, I feel like the T Higgins discussion though is more like, are you a one? No. Would you be a one elsewhere? Yes. I think
Well,
with
that's the
T
thing, 'cause
Higgins specifically.
well,
But if you're gonna frame it from a Jordan Addison perspective, I think that's a much better comparison.
I think Tyson can be unbelievable. I think Tyson can be like they are not similar archetypes of receivers. I'm just talking purely like how good of a receiver they are because they couldn't be more.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, they couldn't be more different players. I'm just talking about like level of quality of player. Like
I'm
the
not
way
trying to
that
derail what you're saying. I was
no, you're good. Like the way that like Jackson Smith and Jigba and AJ Brown are very different players, but they're both very good receivers. It's like, yeah,
Sure.
they're like it's same quality of play, but like different kind of receivers. That's what I mean. I don't mean Jordan Tyson does not play like T Higgins at all. But what I'm saying is I think he could survive as a one. Like if he went to the Titans, he could survive as a one. But like I could see a lot of problems. In the Saints, he could thrive, absolutely thrive, truly.
Man, I hope so. Like that's my whole thing with him is like the hopium is so real when it
Mhm.
comes to me talking about Jordan Tyson because it all could end up being a what if scenario because the guy tears his ACL or he messes up his ankle again for the 30th time, some sort of high ankle sprain, which I believe he's currently dealing with, right? Like he didn't do their rookie minicamp because he's still recovering from the high ankle sprain he suffered at the end of the season, if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken. So like that is definitely a concern. And it's a very realistic concern. And I hope he doesn't end up on the PUP list before the season even begins because they're trying to protect him through this 5 years that he's going to be a Saint. You know, this is my concern with drafting a guy like this. Oh, he's got really bad ankles. You know, he loads himself kind of weird on his feet that will lead to long-term injuries. Let's put him on a team with turf. Yeah, great job, guys. That's really thinking about team outlook there. You know, that's where the analytics guys need to step up and be like, guys, maybe not this one. You know,
But also, I think about the top positions of where you could have landed. I just think this is his best spot. I mean,
definitely from a
being a
team outlook, from a scheme outlook, I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's just more so the conversation begins and ends for me with him. Like, show me you being healthy. Because
for
I don't
sure.
even think in that 24 season where he was going off, he was
No,
healthy.
he's never had a full season healthy. He's never had
Never.
a full season
And now
healthy.
it's going to be 17 games.
Well, also the question is the 25 tape really dropped off from the 24 tape. The question is, did he play injured and those injuries still lingered, or I hate to
Are
say
they
this about
piling
players.
up?
That's what I'm saying. Like, are the injuries starting to be a thing that affect him overall in his career? Like, as in they
Right.
like long lasting, right? Like, I never want to like assume that because that's a
Right.
big
And I
negative
don't
for a
want to
player.
make this prediction because I think it's going to happen, but it's really giving me Will Fuller vibes. It's like the
Sure.
same sort of feeling. You know, this guy's a freak. This guy's everything you want in a receiver. If he can just stay on the field, it'll be great. And then he just never could. And he
Yeah.
ended up retiring at 27 years old.
And the good
And
news
I
is that
don't wish that on anybody.
And the good news is Tyson's a way better receiver than Fuller was. Like, I think Tyson's ceiling is very legit. Like, if
Oh,
Tyson could
absolutely.
get healthy and clean up some of these, especially some of the route stuff is a little bit wild horse like, a little bit Jerry Judy like. Like if he can, you can clean it up. It's not easy to clean up, but you can clean it up. If he can do that, like he can be like unbelievable, like truly. Like I think he could have the ceiling of one. There's just a lot of things that need to go right for that to happen. And if he wasn't so injured, I'd be a lot more confident in those things happening. But those on the field concerns, along with the injuries, is why I'm like, let him be a two. Let him be a superstar too, and then we can start talking about maybe in 2 years if he could be a one. Because Olave is the one over there. I saw some people being like, "Wow, 1A, 1B." There's no 1A, 1B here, man. Don't sleep on Olave. Olave gets injured all the time, and yet he's more physical than Tyson is. He's more physical than Tyson.
No. I was more so like thinking about all the concussions. Like I was like, oh yeah, how
Yeah,
could I
yeah,
forget what they've been
yeah,
dealing with? Keith
yeah, yeah.
Williams has his hands full over there in
He,
that wide receiver room, man. Like,
yeah,
like What's Lance's career look like so far? Has he been healthy when he was in college, or is he?
He's
What's
been
his
fine,
deal?
I think. I think he's been pretty fine. He's also a lot more big and physical frame wise than the other two. So he brings that X receiver juice, which is nice, which we'll talk about in a later video because I do really like what Lance's outlook could be over there. Let's get to Jeremiah Love, which is an interesting one because draft pick wise, I have a lot of negatives of the choice, right? But in terms of outlook on this offense, it's a bit of an interesting conversation because the first thing I come to is Ashton Jeanty from last year, right? What happened there? Took a running back high. Let's see what he can be. And the offense around him was negative to the point that it affected his play, right? Also, on top of that, Jeanty had some bad moments as well. I think Jeanty struggled sometimes. I asked myself how much of that could be a Love conversation too, because I don't know where these two stack up for you. I had Love as a better prospect than Jeanty, but it's close. What about you?
Um, I kind of go back and forth here. I
Yeah,
really like the receiving ability of Jeremiah Love. I think his blocking is like exactly what you'd want out of a running back coming out of college too. So it's really tough. But Genty, that dude's legit as well. Um,
hmm
I mean, if it's gonna be like if it's a situation where I'm picking first and second, it's more 1A, 1B.
yeah.
So like either way, I feel like it's the same discussion regardless of prospect here.
For sure. I lean Love just because I think they both have great big
Dude, it
playability.
depends on like which side of the bed I wake up on that day. Like that's how
Yeah,
close it is for
yeah.
me.
I think Love just translates there. He has certain aspects of his talent that's a little bit more impressive, in terms of the way he moves, and it
A little bit
almost
bigger, a
makes
little bit more durable.
yeah a little bit bigger. You know what I mean? So I worry that there could be similar problems here in Arizona where listen, they do have more weapons. They have two legit receivers. Say what you want about Mark, but he's still at least a legit receiver. Like he is a struggling receiver, but still a good receiver. Michael Wilson had a great breakout last year. I think he looks great. Trey McBride's there, of course. Now you
Isn't
have
there a
Jeremiah.
QB1 currently in a holdout?
How are you in a holdout with Jacoby Brissett, man? What?
How are you Jacoby Brissett and you're asking for more money from an NFL team?
What are we doing? Well, you know what? I look at this as this is the incubator for Arch Manning next year. You know what I mean? Which will be well. Then I'll be interested. If we're talking about Arch Manning with Mike LaFleur, who is a good offensive coordinator, by the way. I like Mike LaFleur a lot. I thought he got the short end of the stick in New York with the Jets. He was giving Garrett Wilson some of his best looks. Like I stand by. I like LaFleur. Um, if you're talking next year, Arch Manning with that offense, with that growing defense, with Walter Nolan and all these pieces, and hey, I'm just saying, if that happens next year, I'm kind of really intrigued by the Cardinals. But as of right now, absolutely not. Right. So like in terms of the quarterback situation, that's going to create more of an emphasis where teams know they're going to run the ball more. And that was a problem for Vegas last year with Gino playing so bad. But then they were very prolific with passing, and then that still had problems for JT.
Right.
The interior of Arizona's offensive line is not great either. You know what I mean? Like I don't really feel like they have guys there. Like I want to take a really quick look at what this interior looks like. But like I like that they got
Well,
Chase
I like
Besantos.
Kelvin Beachum comes to mind, and he might have retired 10 years ago for all I know. Like that's the name that keeps popping up for me with Arizona. Arizona, like for a long time, and I think to an extent now, has been seen as like this is where guys go before they retire. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
like
Like a
that's
lot of
just
a lot of these guys are very much at their best rotational guys, and they have Besantis, which is nice, and obviously
yes.
Paris Johnson Jr., who I think is very legitimate. And Matt Pryor's fine as a right tackle. But I could see a lot of outside zone runs being the emphasis of this team because I don't know how you're going to run up the middle. Yeah, I believe in
A
Chase
lot of
Besantis, but
checkdowns in the future as well.
yes, exactly. So it's interesting because I do think there could be a lot of concern for the way that this offense runs, and that will negatively impact Love's just overall outlook, which is weird because I think they have a better offense than the Raiders did last year with JT. But they don't have a quarterback, and that adds so much pressure, especially because their interior is also really bad.
Right.
I get it. They got Basantes. We're building pieces there, but it's not yet there. Eventually, when they can get a legitimate quarterback, we can have conversations about the way that splits and the play action looks and stuff like that. But right now, I just think so much pressure is on Love to be the home run hit of this offense if their passing game cannot get off the ground.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how Mason Rudolph translates when he gets to Arizona over there, passing it and check down to Jeremiah Love. You know, tank for Arch, right? March for Arch, and I mean, what do they do? I mean, if Brissett doesn't want to play for you, what do you do? Like, do you call Josh Dobbs? Hey, sorry about how last time went. Want to come back?
We,
Or do
I
you,
mean, I mean, I think we know the answer of what they're gonna do. Carson Beck, man. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, the goat. How could you? How
yeah,
could I? I had to hear from your lips though. I had to
yeah.
hear
Well,
you say it.
I didn't want to say it, but yeah, like,
But
yeah,
that being said, like they could rely so heavily on Jeremiah Love. I mean, it's not insane to think 1,000 yards rushing, 500 yards receiving
it's
this year.
not. I just worry about the same things that we had conversations about with JT
Durability,
last year. That and just JT. I'm fine with Love's durability. I think he's a pretty healthy guy. I think he's gonna be fine. But like, I think about the JT thing last year, where so much of our mindset was like, well, you can invest a lot in this guy and let him be the focal point. But then it's like
right?
when teams know that, and then the player also struggles, that creates problems, right? Where you can have this struggling year. And so I think Love has more of that crazy out of structure big play ability where it's like I could see like a guy going to tackle him in the backfield and then they slide off of his ankle and suddenly the whole
Right.
defense
The
doesn't know what
level
they're
of
doing.
competition that Love faced consistently was better than
Yes,
Ginty as well.
for
So I think
sure.
he's a little bit more prepared at the NFL level. Like it's not going to be as
For
much of a
sure.
sucker punch when you come out the gate. But I understand that it's also still possible to have the exact same thing end up happening. But I also think that their offensive line's better than what the Raiders put out there last year.
I agree. I don't know. I'm just concerned about that interior though. I really
Their
am.
schedule's absolutely brutal, by the way.
And that's the other thing. Like, are we talking about serious defensive fronts they're facing too? Like, and so that's the thing. And like, I think Love will survive and be fine and play well. Like, if you're talking about outlook career wise, I know Jeremiah Love's gonna be incredible. I'm just thinking about how well this season will go. Like, I feel the same way about JT, right? Like, he'll be fine, but like that season didn't go well. I wonder about that with Love here. I think it'll be a better season than JT. I don't know if it'll be 1,000 yards. I would love for it to be. I hope so, but I feel like he's real. Like the pressure is a lot on Love. Like a lot of the pressure's on Love, which is unfair. But it's unfortunately a situation. So I I'm concerned, but we'll see. You know what I mean? Like we
Yeah.
will see. Maybe Beck is an efficient enough just check down guy, and he gets like a lot of receiving yards from check downs or something. I don't know. Like like, that could be the case, genuinely. But yeah, speaking of running backs, last one here, Jadarian Price, which is an interesting one. I'll let you start this off because I know you didn't really like this pick.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, this is like one of these, like even as like a topic of discussion, like this could almost end up being a nothing burger where they're like, we're hitting the panic button early, kind of like they like when they brought in Tank Bigsby, and then they were like, let's get rid of Tank Bigsby, and like they constantly are doing this in over there, and it doesn't make sense to me as much.
So
I don't know.
you don't like them drafting him. Like you don't like that.
Not as early as they did. I mean, I don't understand the benefit of it other than like they're like, oh, we need a guy right now. So let's just
I
get
think
a
he was the
guy right
best.
now.
I think he was the best back on the table. Like I
But
think
why
he's the best.
take a back there is what I'm saying.
Well, they took him at 32. Would it have mattered if they took him at 32 or 33 in the second? I wouldn't
33 is
care.
not a fifth year option. I mean, so I feel like that's what matters to them.
But like that's what I'm saying. Like if Price got taken at 33, would you have felt better?
I don't think I don't know. I don't know if I would have like cared as much. Like again, like to me, like this pick comes across as like a nothing burger, and it's nothing against him as a player. It's just the team that he went to, and what I feel like I would have wanted for like Seattle is not what they got. Like I feel like they had a lot of other choices there. I probably would have gone corner at that point if I was them, but I can't really remember off the top of my head how the board looked. And I did compare it to like the Jacksonville scenario earlier for reference when I brought up Tanks Bigsby. I saw you get a little
Yeah.
confused there, but it's a constant like will he, won't he? I mean, look what they did last year, right? Kenneth Walker was like only their stable back because their real back got hurt, and he was not a first round pick. You know what I
Who are
mean?
you
So it's
talking about?
Rashad Penny.
I mean, yeah, but like running back lives, I feel like come and go so fast, and like that is true. But also,
But
he
that's what
was
I'm saying, right? Like you're looking at positional value. I'm saying that Jadarian Price to Seattle is bad positional value.
I
Like,
just
not
don't
even
think
just
it
because it's
matters when
Seattle,
we're
not even
getting.
just because it's Seattle. I
I
just
but I
don't
but
like
I
running
don't
backs in the first round.
I don't think the level of player that prices is negative at 32. 32 as opposed to 33 or 34, which is kind of just a fine range because after him, it's a big drop off, huge drop off, right? Like, and there was conversations around him. Like, if he went like 25, I'd be like, yeah, I get it. But like for a team that needs a running back pretty desperately, for them to take him at 32, knowing, hey, probably 33, 34, 35, that's going to be his range, that's fine because we're not talking about like top 25. Like 32 is borderline second round pick. Like that's like I'm fine with that at that point. How many 30-second picks really end up panning out to where they take these random swings on some big tackle? Like at that point, take the swing on a running back that you know can be your workhorse right away. I think he's got good acceleration, good vision, good cutback ability, like all that kind of stuff. Like he's physical, he's huge. He's going to get the opportunity to be the running back one immediately, and he
Which
can
he's
be
never
that.
done before. And that's the other thing with him.
I don't see. I think for running backs, I care about that way less. For running backs, I care about that way less because they're getting the same looks. They're getting the same like defensive fronts. Like there's not really much changing outside of what they've seen already. Like I think for him, he'll be fine. Now, what level of player will he be? Will he just be like a pretty solid running back or great running back? That's the conversation, right? But I think in terms of just value and where they got him, that was fine. You filled a hole you needed. I mean, their running back depth was bad. Like I am not into. I think it's Emmanuel Wilson, and I think it's who else here? It's George
Did they
Holani.
keep Rashad Penny?
No, Rashad Benny's long gone. Like it's been a minute. Yeah, he's not really on a team anymore.
Who am I thinking of that tore his ACL last year?
Charbonnet,
Charbonnet. My
but
gosh.
Charbonnet was not their one. Charbonnet
Same
was
type
not
of
their.
player in my head is Rashad Penny and
Charbonnet was
Zach
not their
Charbonnet.
one though. Walker's
Sorry
been
to the
their.
12s for that one. That
Yeah,
one's on me. That one's on me.
Walker's been their one since like he was drafted. Like
But then he
he's been.
lost his job, and they looked better when
He didn't. He
Charbonnet was
didn't.
on the
He didn't
field.
lose his
He
job.
had to
No. So
regain it back.
he didn't lose his job to Charbonnet. He didn't lose his job to Charbonnet. That's not. He did, dude. That's a terrible take. That's a terrible take. He did not lose. Everyone knows if you're a Seattle fan, everyone knows that Walker gets hurt a lot. He does. He gets hurt a lot, and their offensive line was bad. So what they did was they used Charbonnet as a battering ram because he's the more built running back. He's just a different archetype. It's the equivalent of putting an X someone at X receiver, but they're not your best receiver, right? It's like that doesn't mean he's your one.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure.
it's that. It's the
I don't
equivalent
watch
of
enough
that.
Seattle, I guess, to have
They
compared
just
to
use
yours. But no,
Charbonnet
that
as the
is
workhorse so that Walker can be big play. But Walker's easily their one. Like every time they talk, they're like, no, Walker's the one. Like Walker's the one. Because then as soon as the playoffs happened, they knew he was healthy and they had this whole plan to keep him as healthy as possible. And he went out there and dominated. Like that wasn't just because Charbonnet got hurt. Charbonnet was the backup the entire playoffs because he was never the one. It's just the way that they utilize their offense and the way they play things. Like I said, I think the best comparison is having an X receiver who isn't your wide receiver one. It's like, yes, is that the most important receiver position? Yes. Does that mean he's your one? No, it's just the way they play out their offense, right?
well.
Like
Would I rather have Jadarian Price, or would I rather gotten Rico Dowdle for a little bit more price? You like no pun intended.
I would have rather had Jadarian Price. I would have rather had Jadarian Price.
And I guess that's where we just differ. I just don't see a benefit to using a first round pick, regardless of where.
But is pick 32, like I think pick 32 and 31 are so different from the rest of the first round. Like at that point, we're just fading into second round stuff here.
Fading
And
into second round stuff, but you get a fifth year option with
but that's
any
not
first
bad.
round
It's not a
pick.
negative. That's not a negative. It's a positive.
Why would I use that on a running back? He's
If he's
already
really
done.
good, you are. If he's incredible, you are. If he's not, then you
Oh
move
my
on
god,
and you
no, you're
deny it.
not. Like you're signing the extension if he is.
You just
Because
but then
running
you
back
just
shelf life
but
is
then
6 years.
if you don't want to give the guy the 5th year extension option, then just decline it. Just decline it and move on. That's the thing. You don't have to sign it, but it gives you the opportunity to if he's really great and you want to keep using your roster, right? Like I just see no problem with it, especially for such a weak draft class. I think it's completely fine value. I think it's completely fine value, especially at 32. If this was pick 25 or 20 or something like that, I would completely agree with you. But if we're talking, and I was worried price would go that high, 32, I could not care less. That is so okay with me.
I sit there, that pick was announced, and I went, fine. And I went to bed. Like,
Okay, but what would win you over? Like if he is an 1,000-yard rusher, 900, 800-yard rusher, he's a major part of their
I
offense.
don't think you can convince me it's ever good to use a first round pick on a pure running back.
But we're talking about pick 32, though. We're not talking about like pick 15 or 10, man.
How
This is
many
different.
picks did the Seattle Seahawks have in this draft?
Not many, but they also don't have
Not
that many
many.
holes. But they also don't have that many holes. Like I don't really have that many
Defensive
holes. I'm
back
looking
is
at.
certainly one of them.
Not to that aggressive of a degree. I like their depth. They're losing. They lost Woolen and they lost Bryant, and they filled those in pretty fine. Like they filled those in pretty fine.
So why not take another guy that you'll have a fifth-year option with?
Maybe they
versus
didn't
a
view a
running back
corner
that you
very.
could've-
Well, maybe they didn't view a corner very highly at that spot. Maybe they were like, "I'm not going to pick one."
And I understand that, but if you don't view it highly, then you need to look internally because why are we using a first-round pick on a running back?
Because that running back's better than some of the other players on the board at that time. I get it if we were talking about like pick 20, but we're talking about pick 32. That's fine, man. That's completely fine. You know what I mean? Like I would totally be with you if we're
I
talking.
think you're just letting the Super Bowl blind you from a bad decision. That's what
No, because it's pick 32, man. Like I completely would agree with you if it was like pick 20, pick 10, pick 15. I'd be like, that's way too high. We're overdoing it here. But like for the quality of player that Price is at 32, that is more than okay. That is absolutely. He was already getting talk about first round stuff because he's a good running back, man. He's a good running back prospect, a very good one. Like at that range, there's no reason to fight over that. Like, there's like at that point, 32 versus 33, I could not care less.
Who was
like,
picked 33?
I don't.
Was it Stukes?
No, Stribling.
Who 34 was Stukes then, right?
Maybe it's possible, but
I would have rather had Stukes than Price at that point.
Stukes' age concerns me, and it wouldn't be that clear cut for me. Him and Price grade out pretty similar. Yeah, I don't know about that.
My hands are up. My hands are up.
I just don't think it's worth like looking at so negatively for pick 32.
I'm not sitting here and hoping the guy fails to prove a point.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Purely,
That's not what I'm
like
saying.
this isn't about Price as a player. This is strictly about the business side of how long do running backs actually last in the league. And if you look around the league at all the starters, how many of those are first round picks? The Steelers currently have Jaylen Warren as their starter. He was undrafted.
Sure, but this is also a historically terrible running back class. Like this was
Get one of the undrafted guys and see what they are.
No, but like after Price and Love were legitimate prospects.
Yeah,
after
and then
that,
Mike Washington, and then it was like crazy.
Mike Washington was not that legit. I get that he had a great combine. Let's be real. Like I like Mike Washington, but let's pump the brakes. But like after those two guys, it was a drop off. So what do you say? Let's get the second guy that's pretty good, so that we at least have one good running back. Because after that, I really don't care what move they made at running back.
I mean, I'll be comparing him personally to Heidenreich, and we'll see who does better.
He's better than Heidenreich. He's better. He's absolutely better. I'm sorry. I can't get behind that.
That was a troll. I'm just saying, like first round pick, 7th round pick.
That's some Steelers propaganda, man.
But I was also trolling.
Yeah.
I'm also just trying to make the point of like, look, first round pick, extra pressure for no reason on a running back.
I mean, he would, whoever was their running back that they drafted was going to get pressure anyways because they have a vacancy at running back. That was going to happen no matter what. You know what I mean? Like no one was going to be like, he's really fighting it out with George Holani. Like it's like, no, you really have to be the running back one. Like so, no matter what,
Charbonnet's not going to be ready for a minute, huh?
No, that's why they needed to make this play because Charbonnet's not going to be ready, and you also don't know what that's going to look like post ACL. So like this was like a move they really needed to make, and I thought this was a completely fine value. So I'm totally fine with it, and I think
look at the hands. You see the hands; they're up.
They're up. They are up. But I mean, agree to disagree, even though you're wrong. But yeah, we can definitely leave it at that. But I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't know if there's any other kind of names that just come to your mind before we close this out that you just think about generally of like, I'm curious to see how this guy does.
Yeah, no, like if we're going to talk about like my Steelers bias here, Jeremy Bernard is definitely a name that I'll be watching personally. I think he went to probably the best scheme fit, for his style. That's all I'm really excited for. You brought up Lance earlier. That's also a name I'm going to be watching this year because I think that's a sleeper pick. He could end up having a way bigger year than people are anticipating.
For sure.
So those are two names that stick out to me almost immediately on the offensive side.
Yeah. Definitely. I lean towards Ted Hurst. I think he can get that role as next receiver. right. He's
Stribling
more
with the 49ers is another really, speaking of
dribbling.
unnecessary pressure.
Yeah, no, Stribling, absolutely. I think that's a very interesting one. I think there's a few options where I'm pretty curious about these guys. But yeah, man, I think that's pretty good for what we got right now. Thank you so much for watching. If you watched all the way through, you guys, these are fun because I like having the conversations about some of these guys and their landing spots because there's more to it than just like good player, you know. And I feel like I get annoyed when people just like simplify these players and just like Price is going to be good because he's a good running back, and Seattle needs a running back. And it's like, okay, there's more to it though. Like, there's more to it. But yeah, we appreciate you guys watching. Be on the lookout for some other videos as well. Lots of stuff upcoming, and yeah, we will see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you, guys.